Hello! I've already lost my notes. Hang on. Found them. Oh, I dropped them. Hello everybody, it's Charlotte. I'm here for the... Nope. Hello everybody, it's May, and that means I am doing a video about April. In April I read 6 books, which is better than 5 books, and most of them were okay. That's it. As well as a squeaky chair today, I have jingly earrings in. They're very nice. They're from Bristol. I went to, I can't remember what it's called, but they have a little bookshop which does witchy horror books. I got one of this month's books there, as well as these earrings, which are actually clip-on. I do have my ears pierced, but that doesn't stop me wearing a clip-on earring, particularly if it's this cool. It may jingle too much. I almost wore it for my last video and I decided it was too jingly, so I don't know why today I feel different. I feel capable today. So shall we begin? We probably ought to. I've got my green tea today, decaf, because I've already had enough caffeinated beverages. And I've got some elf ears here. I thought I could wear an elf ear to the video, but then I was like, maybe it's not really thematic. Hang on. So something like that. Oh, if I move this, it might look better. I think these are so cute. But what do you think? Do you think I should do a fantasy-only month? I've already started reading for May, so it wouldn't be for May, but maybe June could be fantasy month. Because every other month is horror month, really. Though, of course, there will be a special one for October for Halloween. But most months are horror months. I think June could be fantasy. I'm sure I could find enough fantasy books that I want to read, even though, again, I mostly read horror. I am historically a fantasy reader before I got into horror. So maybe we could do that, and then I could do Elf Ears video at the start of July. Anyway, just something to think about. Let me get into position. There you go. Okay, so my first book this month was Nowhere Burning by Catriona Ward. I've mentioned Catriona Ward before. She's one of my favourite writers writing at the moment. She does lots of twisty-turny horror stories. There's still quite a few books of hers I've not read yet. I do want to catch up and read all her work because I generally really enjoy it. This was not my favourite of her work. I still liked it. It was not my favourite. So a lot of this book is told from a child's POV. I'm going in and out of focus. Am I a little too far away? Maybe that's better. No? I'll just sit very still. So, okay, the thing, I'm not a big fan of reading children POV. I think it's really, really hard to write from the perspective of a child character. For this book, it made sense, but at the same time, it didn't really add anything to the other POVs apart from context, even though it was the main POV character, which is interesting. As with all Catriona Ward books, there are things going on that will keep you guessing till the end, so don't worry. If you like horror with a bit of confusion on the side, this is the place to be. The different POVs are all set in different years, but the play here is that she doesn't tell you what year each POV is set in, and working that out as you go along is part of the intrigue that she has going on. And I still think there is a really nice reveal towards the end relating to that, which I didn't guess. I do think it was probably guessable, but it just didn't occur to me. Even though I was wondering throughout the whole story, like, I just went fuzzy again. Sit still. I was wondering who the final POV character was in relation to the rest of the story. And when I found out, I was surprised. Shockingly. but I don't know. This happens to me a lot. Even though I read a lot and I write, the amount of plot twists I simply don't see coming. Maybe it's why I like reading so much. Because I'm just not paying enough attention. Surprise! You got me. I should probably tell you what this book is. Please ignore that I keep defocusing. I think it's partially because I've really turned down my brightness settings and it thinks it can't see me. Is that how cameras work? I turned it all the way down because last time I did this video I also filmed in the mid-afternoon and the bedroom just got so illuminated at one point that there was almost no point me having been in the dark. You could see my whole room, which is, you know, it's not like I'm hiding anything in here, but it does feel a bit weird to put my whole bedroom on the internet, so I didn't want to do that again, not to that extent. So I've turned the brightness all the way down, so hopefully it still works okay. What was I talking about? Right, this book. So Nowhere Burning, it's about a small colony of children who sort of led very, very hard lives, and they've run away and they've all congregated in this abandoned mansion. In the abandoned mansion used to live a reclusive film director, I want to say, producer director, and there's a lot of questions about him being a serial killer, but then it also goes back to some murders that happened there before he even bought the building. So as often in horror, centers on the building. I do think there wasn't as much payoff around the film director character as there could have been, but they went more in depth with the pre that story than I expected, so it balances out. However, most of the story is told from the perspective of a character who is taking her brother to join this little colony of children and her experiences there and how that all works out. So yes, children are a large part of this book. And that's okay, but it didn't resonate with me as much. I think, as I say, it's very hard to write from the perspective of a child because you're missing a lot. There's a lot of things you can't do in the same way. And it's also very hard to get the tone right so it doesn't feel too childish to read, but it also doesn't feel misplaced for the character. I do think she nailed the tone, I just didn't think it was very interesting. Sorry to that child. I found it a little frustrating at times, but overall it was still an enjoyable book. The twists at the end still surprised me, but again, I think that's just me not being able to predict obvious twists. It was, even though I didn't guess it, it was I think it's one of her more easy to guess plot twists. Books she's done it in the past I don't know how you would have guessed it, but at the same time it adds to the story. It doesn't take away from it. There's something deeply wrong with my camera's focusing system today. 4 out of 5. It's Catriona Ward. Unless she does something really terrible, I'm not going to rate her below a 4. I love her. Okay. Book number 2. Be Right Back by Bill Wood. This is a sequel in a trilogy of young adult horror mystery books. It was good fun. I've spoken a little bit before about the differences between young adult horror and adult horror. You can get away with a lot more in young adult because it serves a very different purpose. I think the important thing is just to make sure you're marketing to the right level, because for me, I can enjoy young adult horror, but I do enjoy them in a different way to adult horrors. I've read books in the past where I thought they were adult horror and it's read a lot more like young adult, and that's disappointing. So it's all about expectations, and I think these books are marketed with the correct expectations, so that helps. They're good, they're fun, they're set I think in 2001, 2002, so there's a good bit of nostalgia there for people who are not young adults. People who are medium-sized adults, and at the same time manages to be, LGBT positive. It's got good characters, diverse characters, so it's a win-win situation. What I will say is, having just told you I'm really bad at guessing plot twists, I thought that the killer was really obvious in this book, to the point where I thought it had to be a red herring. Like, they really want you to think it's this guy, so it can't possibly be that guy. But it was. That was a bit weird. There was an additional character who... the seeds were planted that it might be them as well. And then it didn't really push that far enough for it to be a valid alternative. So if you're reading for the mystery, the first book in this series is more interesting and better paced on the mystery level. But if you've already read that and you're wondering whether to keep reading this series, do. I would say it's not a high-level mystery for you to solve, but you will have a nice time. It's quick to read, it's entertaining, and it's really... I like the dynamic between the characters quite a lot. I do follow Bill Wood on TikTok, I want to say. He posts quite frequently on TikTok, and he just seems like a nice guy. So that may be changing my judgment a little bit, but in a good way. I would say it helps to seem like a nice person. There's definitely authors out there who are not nice people, and that makes me less likely to enjoy your book. Whereas if you're a nice person, I guess it goes the opposite way. So cheers to that. I should have made this way closer to starting this video. I made it and then got ready for the video, rather than getting ready and then making the drink. I'm just gonna finish this now. Bear with me. that over there. Aww. Okay, so that was Be Right Back by Bill Wood. 3.5, because it was guessable, but it was still fun. But it's fun for the things that are not the plot line. I'm sure everyone's read books like that. It's like, okay, the story, but the people, the pace, the characters, it's good fun. I felt that way about, this is totally unrelated, I felt that way about Assassin's Creed Black Flag, specifically. Assassin's Creed games in general, the plot lines are never great, but they're fun games. If you're not playing for the plot line, you can have fun in Assassin's Creed. And I guess that's sort of how I felt about this book. There is going to be a third one, and I will read it. I mean, to be honest, I like this. Yeah, I'm just going to stop repeating myself. No, I should tell you what the book's about. Oh, woo. Okay. So in the first book, there is a local supernatural mystery about a ghost that's killing students. And these guys get together and they solve the mystery. I think it's marketed as like a Scooby-Doo sort of rip-off is not the right word, inspiration. It's like one of the comps is Scooby-Doo, and I can see it. In the sequel, after they've solved that mystery, it's one of the anniversaries of them solving the mystery. Here's another thing I didn't really like. They're really famous because they solved the mystery. But a lot of the first part of the book in particular is just about how famous they are in the local area and wider spread. And it didn't really ring true for me, and I didn't really enjoy reading that. I like my small town mysteries to stay small. So anyway, in comes this copycat killer, and the cycle repeats, and they're trying to work out who's replicating all these local folklore mysteries and killing people. It's a nice concept, but it does follow the book a bit too closely, as it were. But anyway, I would still recommend it if you can do young adult reading. Okay, switching it up a bit, we have book number 3, The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling. This is a hard one for me. I have really mixed feelings about this book. I think a large part of it can be put down to the fact that I don't pay enough attention. Sometimes. So it's getting brighter in here. If I get closer to the screen, it will forget about that. So you're just gonna see my face up close for a bit. Can I sit here? Where am I? Here, maybe. So Caitlin Starling, The Starving Saints. I couldn't always follow what was going on. It is meant to be a bit psychedelic, a bit out there, and it is, but in a way that meant I couldn't always tell what was going on. I even tried to reread bits of it because I didn't get it. So maybe it's not me, but it probably is me. It's a very original idea. What I will say, another thing is, on the level of expectations, I thought it would be medieval horror. It is a fantasy, and it reads like a fantasy. Please be aware of that before you go in. It's marketed as a horror. It's a horror fantasy. They are different things. But it's medieval style fantasy. That's what confused me. I would think I would have enjoyed it more if it was historical. Even though I get why it had to be fantasy, because all of the main characters are women, and, you know, one of them's a knight, one of them's a bit of a witch. There's things about it that are unreasonable. You know, why'd I say that? In a historical context. So they are being sieged in a castle, and they've pretty much run out of food. They don't know what to do, they can't get out, nothing can come in. And right as they are about to completely run out of hope and start eating each other, thus arrive some saints, who are not necessarily the actual saints they worship, but that's how they present themselves, and a lot of people are taken in by that. And these saints have a certain magic power that, how do I put this? It's very food based. Like, they have honey, and if you eat the honey, you're under their power, and you won't question what you're doing. And then they start enforcing cannibalism anyway. And it's meant to have this body horror thing to it, like with the cannibalism and people cutting off their own limbs and stuff like that to please the saints, to provide food. And I do think it could have leaned harder into that body horror. Because it was there, but it could have been more. Obviously, why else would I say? And then I think it would have made it more of a horror if it was more gory, more graphic. And I'm not saying it wasn't, I'm saying it should have been more so. There's a difference. What else did I say about this book? Yes, I do think the premise is definitely something I've never seen before, and it does work, and it's got very sapphic undertones, sometimes overtones. I enjoyed it, but yeah, it just did confuse me, and I think there were aspects of it that were unclear what was going on because of it's this whole idea, and I've just read another book with the same problem. It's this whole idea of, if you're in a sort of bedrugged situation as a character, and I'm reading this, it takes you into a whole other realm of writing where it is on purpose hard to know for sure what's really going on. And that's fine to an extent. It can very quickly get confusing in a way that's just difficult to read. And I did find this crossed into that territory a little bit for me. But I know I've seen a lot of people really enjoy this book. I think if you're into that sort of slightly religious horror, fantasy horror, medieval fantasy, and you don't mind a little bit of body horror, definitely worth dipping your toes into this one. No pun intended. It was fine. It didn't immediately make me want to read more of her work, but it was enough to intrigue me about more of her work. I've not read any other books by this author, so I'm not sure. Like I say, very mixed feelings. In theory, this should be really, really, really awesome and different. In my experience, it was a bit hard to get to grips with. But anyway, I put it as a 3 out of 5. I think what would have raised it for me is just a bit more clarity around certain points of the book, particularly towards the end, and I guess a bit more sense of victory in the finale. There's, obviously sacrifices have to be made, but if I don't understand the sacrifice, and I can't comprehend what's actually happening to the character in that point, it really takes away from that satisfaction for me as a reader. So that's what happened to me. But I was reading this as a workbook, and to be fair, that is the ones I struggle with more often than not, because if I'm at work, I'm just reading on my lunch break. If I'm just reading on my lunch break, I'm never 100% focused on the book because there's always something going on. For those of you who don't know, I work in a museum, and when I'm working, I'm always duty manager. Now, this means that if things happen, I'm the first point of response. There's often things going on, even if they're very low stakes things. I have to sort of keep one ear up just so I have a handle on what's going on. A lot of the times, my colleagues are very nice. If they can see I'm reading a book and I'm clearly taking a break, they'll go deal with something, but I still like to know what's happening, even if I'm not responding that quickly. So that probably also played a part in it. Hello? I do, like I say, I've heard better reviews than my review for this book. I don't know why it's doing all this. Number 4, Scuttler's Cove by David Barnett. This is the one I bought at the same time as I bought these earrings. Let's look at them again. Let's jingle them. Let's jingle them, everybody. Delightful. Scuttler's Cove. Can I be honest with you guys? I had to research this one to make sure. Well, I read it and I thought it was self-pub. And it's not. Just because it was a bit heavy on the exposition right at the beginning, and I don't know, I don't really like the cover. All of it was screaming self-pub, or at least indie pub to me. I was sure it was at least indie. And I actually, upon researching it, I don't think it is. I think it's trad pub, which shocked me. And it's not a solo book. There's 3 of these. Oh my goodness. Not all the exact same story, but related, adjacent stories. So that's enough to tell you what I think about the quality of the writing. Is, again, no shade to self-pub authors in general, but as I've said before, there are very different support systems for different publishing formats, and that is why it often feels like there's a difference, even though, to be honest, I'm sure a lot of the books start in very similar places. This one felt like it hadn't had that refinement. The whole first chapter didn't, you could have jumped in later, it would have been more exciting. It didn't feel like there was a B plot going on. It felt very straight and narrow, just doing this one thing up until the very last minute when they reveal, oh, actually there's been a secret B plot all along. You can get away with that, but only if you've dropped enough hints, and while it dropped hints, it didn't it wasn't in an interesting way. It was very obvious that they were trying to say something, but it wasn't saying, hey, here's something to be interested in. It was just saying, hey, we got something going on, don't worry about it. I didn't worry about it, to be honest. So when the reveal came out, it was not a satisfying reveal of the B-plot. The B-plot should have been playing in a similar pacing to the main plot, and it wasn't. It was just like a secret thing. If they had tied in the B-plot better to the main plot, I think it would have been a lot better. If they'd started maybe one chapter later and cut some of the exposition, I think it would have been a lot better. If they'd made the ending of the book a bit less hollow, I suppose. There's all this sort of backstory. Oh, once again, I've not told you what the book's about. This book is about a girl in her 20s who has been living in London, and then she goes back home to Cornwall and realises she's forgotten more of her life there, and she can understand why. Like, it's an unjustifiable amount. Something's clearly happened. Why is she forgotten? What happened? What happened to her mother? I mean, she's only gone back because her mother passed away. And there's a lot of folklore in the area that turns out to be real lore, if you know what I mean. But the side to it is that there are lots of rich Londoners coming in and buying out locals who then can't afford to live there. And that felt like the moral message of the book. Which is fine. But it was a bit on the nose at first, and then by the end it wasn't important. So I didn't really know what to make of that. What else could I say about this? I mean, that's it really. It was alright, and it was very, very lovely English countryside story. I enjoyed parts of it. I just think there was a lot missing that could have been in there, and some of the things that were in there didn't need to be in there. So just a little more switching things around, and I think this would have been a lot better. I can't see myself reading more of this author's writing after this one, so if anyone else has read any David Barnett stories and you think that they are better than I'm doing him credit for, tell me and I will try again. But as it stands, that didn't impress me. Which is a shame, because seaside horror is quite intriguing, and yet this didn't pull through for me. I'm so fuzzy. I'm so sorry. This is going to be awful to watch. This is going to be really awful to watch back. Because it's going to just be fuzzy. I could do a reset by going further away and then going really close. Let's do it. I don't know if that worked. Okay. I put 3 out of 5 for Scuttler's Cove. Same as Starving Saints. Not for me, but could be for someone. It's quite hard for me to give a 2 out, to be honest. Because books are hard. Books are hard to write. If it's coherent, it's a 3. The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Another one of my absolute favourite authors. And And again, this was not my favourite of her books. So, you probably know Silvia Moreno-Garcia as author of Mexican Gothic. That, I believe, is still her most famous book. She's done a variety of other things. And that's it. This is an intergenerational witchy horror. And it's fine. I think the problem that happened here is that a lot more focus got put into one of the plot lines than the other two. So the modern plotline is set in the 90s, and it mostly involves a student doing an investigation into an author who disappeared in the past. You get some 1930s diary extracts from the diary she's researching. That's the middle generation in this novel, and it's not the author who disappeared's diary, it is one of her very close friends who's since passed away. And the 1908 story is the great-grandmother of the girl in the 90s and her encounters with local witchcraft and evil warlocks. So I think the 1908's plotline was really strong. I really enjoyed it. I think it's sort of guessable where it's going, but it's really fun how you get there. And even then you might not guess it. It's got that great Silvia Moreno-Garcia tension, romantic tension, women who are fighting to escape different romances. She does that sort of thing very well. If you like the tension of an enemies to lovers, but mostly the bit when they're enemies, Silvia Moreno-Garcia, she can do that. She nails that feeling. And I really like that. That's one of my favourite dynamics. Again, as someone who doesn't read much romance, this is the dynamic I hook onto. So it has a bit of that. I did think there was going to be a bit more development with character relationships in the modern 90s plotline, and there wasn't. My issue with the modern plotline is that it was mostly following the character around while she studies the diary, which we also get to read. So it was very passive. But the 1908 plotline does make up for it, and was much more interesting to me. I was expecting it to tie together a bit more. There's a few ties, but I felt like the interweaving was not as strong as it could have been. But I mean, I put it as a 4 out of 5. It's fun and witchy and tense and mysterious, and it's got monsters and magic, and I do love an intergenerational story. Some of my favourite stories are intergenerational fiction. So if you can nail that on a horror level, that is fun. I'm gonna stick with a 4 out of 5. It wasn't consistent, I think, is the issue, but it hits that 4 out of 5 for me, by nature of it having the one quite strong plotline. And I just love her style. I love her characters. You never feel lost, you never feel bored. You may feel confused, but only in a good way. She's great. Okay, that takes me to my final book for this month, book number 6. This is You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. This is his first adult horror. He's done a few young adult horrors which I've not read, but I have seen them. He has a large focus on telling LGBT horror stories in a wide variety of contexts. So the narrative here is that there is a cult, a worm cult, which takes people in when they have nowhere else to go. Classic cult thing to do. And the main character, Crane, I believe he's called, is a transgender man who becomes pregnant, and the cult force him to go through with the pregnancy. So it's identity horror and body horror. The majority of this book is very bleak. There's no two ways about it. This is a really bleak story. The majority of it, he's telling you how much he hates himself and hates the baby, hates the pregnancy. And it's also very graphic with... There's a lot of trigger warnings at the start of this book. If you're not sure what's in it, please check. It's intense, and it is not going to be something that everybody enjoys. I really liked it. I don't know what that says about me. But... No, I don't know what that says about me. How do I talk about what's in this book but remaining appropriate for video content? I think there's lots of things in here that I enjoyed as a writer, because it reminds me that there is always something more insane that you could do. This book, I put this down and I was really inspired to go write, because I think there is an obstacle when writing, that there are certain things that sit in your head and in your body that don't ever come out, and you think perhaps they shouldn't. And all of that gets into this book. How much of it comes from the author, how much of it comes from the imagination? Obviously that is a line that is very, very personal. It's very different for everybody, it's different for every book. There is an assumption that a lot of it is very personal, and while that is often the case, I think through the writing process it changes. It becomes diluted most often. In this book, it does not get diluted at all. That's not to say it doesn't... What am I trying to say? It's not to say it's not made up, I suppose. You can write something very raw and then it shifts and changes and becomes something that's not attached to you as an author. And then you have to work through everybody's assumptions that you have all these things in your life in some form, which isn't necessarily true. Or you can just take it straight from within you and put it out in that really raw way. And it is very much not my place to estimate how much of that is totally, Andrew Joseph White's personal experiences and how much is not. But it is very raw. It's direct. It is completely unfiltered. It's every bad thought you've ever had written down in a book. And that is not an exaggeration. And I loved it. I've just never read anything that felt liberated on that level, even though it's really, really horrible and the story's very bleak. And it's just very upsetting. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it. That does not mean I was happy. I was very sad reading this book. Start to finish, I felt so much sympathy for the main character. Everything was very sad. Right at the end, I definitely cried a little bit. My goodness. My only real comment with this book is, firstly, it is very deeply graphic and difficult to read as a narrative. So know that. My second little thing is just that I would have liked to know more about the worm cult. The worm cult's not really explained because the whole book is about Crane's self-hatred, essentially, and hatred of the baby, which is growing inside him. And that's all very valid and very different to anything I've read before. But what is up with the worm cult? A lot of questions were raised that were not answered. So that's why it's a 4 out of 5, not a 5 out of 5. You don't have to answer questions in a book. Sometimes it's better not to answer questions in a book. It's definitely better not to answer questions than to handhold a reader through a book and over-explain everything, because that's so sad. In a bad way, it's just condescending. So, that's that. Those are the books I read. Okay, I'm gonna rank them. Watch out. And I will start at the bottom this time. Yeah, I will. Every time I get to this point in the video, I don't know what to do, even though I do the same thing every time. Okay, worst book this month. Probably Scuttler's Cove by David Barnett. For me, this was a writing issue that could have been resolved, but wasn't. I've said everything I need to say on that. Next, The Starving Saints could have been really good. I just got confused, and it meant nothing really landed for me. That doesn't mean it's a bad book, because actually the writing is good in this one. This is not a writing issue. This is a comprehension issue. Next is Be Right Back by Bill Wood. Solid middle place for this book. Predictable, but it markets itself for what it is, which is just a bit of fun. Light reading, very easy to get through. And then after that, Nowhere Burning by Catriona Ward, because she writes like no one else. She does plot twists like no one else. But yeah, the child POV threw me a little bit. Not my favourite. Then The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. It could have been even better if all the plot lines were as strong as the 1908 plotline. And the book which comes out on top is You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. It was intense as heck, however, I know I will be thinking about it forever. And that, to me, is what makes a book really good. On that note, my previous read of the month is a book that sticks with you. It is a book that is quite depressing. And it is a book that was very popular late last year, even though it was written a few decades ago. And that is I Who Have Never Known Men. And I forgot to write down the author's name, but I'll put it on the screen. So, I Who Have Never Known Men is a post-apocalyptic story about a group of women who have been kept in captivity by some soldier-style men. They have very limited, what is it called? Autonomy. They have no privacy. They are watched all the time. And the protagonist is someone who was just a baby when this all happened and has grown up in this situation. So she has a very different worldview to the older women she lives with, who remember to some extent their life before, their normal life in the world as we know it. This is a really interesting case of a book where very little happens, but you will think about it for the rest of your life. It's really sad because you want to find out what happened, why they were in this situation. You want to know there's a way out, a way towards a better future. You don't get that. And I'm going to tell you right now, you don't get that. And if someone had told me that to begin with, I think it would have made me less likely to read it. But coming from me, and I'm a big non-stop plot fan, coming from me, read this book. If you haven't already, I know a lot of people have. It's just heartbreaking, but in the best possible way, where you go away and it really makes you think about real life. It's very reflective, self-reflective story. And it's one of the rare examples of a book that gives you no answers, and yet you don't necessarily think it should. I think it works as it is. It shouldn't tell me anything because that wouldn't fit the narrative, that wouldn't fit the story that the author's trying to tell. There's very little I can say about this without giving it away, because like I say, it's quite low on plotline, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime sort of book. So do read this. No matter who you are, actually. It's not a horror, although it could be seen as one. It's literary fiction. It is feminist literature. It's not feminist-only literature. Anything else I could say will give away too much. So that'll do. Thank you, everybody, for coming to my house. That's not where you are. Okay, tell me, should I should I read any more specific books, I have had at least one more recommendation, which will be going into my May cycle. Thanks, Claire. And I am also... I'm playing some new video games at the moment. So if you want to know more about video games as well as books, I can talk about video games. It's not really my niche, but I definitely can talk about them. I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3 Honor Mode. I've played this game like 6 times. I have never done Honor Mode before. So we could talk about that, or we could talk about... I have an idea, actually, which is... So I've never successfully played a horror video game because I get too scared, but I watch a lot of them on YouTube. I have an idea that I could film myself trying to play a horror video game for the first time. See what happens. So if anyone has any specific games they'd like me to see do that with, just to expand my repertoire of content creation. That's just something I thought would be funny. Maybe not for me, but hopefully for everybody else. Or again, any books, I will happily go through whatever I have time for. I am so busy, so I'm getting these videos out as promptly as possible after the end of the month, but it does take a bit of time. So thank you for bearing with me as they all appear sort of halfway through the month or later. It's the best I can do. Yeah, that's it. Stay spooky. ASMR. 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 You're feeling very sleepy.